A very good morning to you yet again, Ayanda. Not much movement insofar as the statement of Fadiel Adams is concerned, or his affidavit today, but essentially the Commission Chair wanting to dispense with that aspect of Mr. Fadiel's statement from at the last appearance on the 11th of August, where he went on to state that he had not received communique from the Commission until only 3 months ago in 2026, something that the Commission Chair clearly has taken exception to because he took him to task on that matter.
Mfundo, you say not much movement. I say no movement at all, because in fact we haven't started with the statement involving Fadiel Adams, because the Commission, of course, was interested in clarifying what Fadiel Adams said in this inquiry, what he subsequently said to the media, and what Parliament also came out to actually say. It's interesting because at the heart of it, of course, the Commission is trying to get to the bottom of whether or not the claims he made the last time he was here are true. This doesn't necessarily deal, if you like, with the heart of the terms of reference of this inquiry. But if you ask me, I think the Commission is trying to send a message to anybody else who interacts with this particular body about whether or not, or in fact about how they interact with the institution, and whether or not they can be seen to be delaying the work of this inquiry for whatever reason. As always, in case anybody who's watching now perhaps may have missed part of that interaction, let's take you back to an instance where Fadiel Adams tried to apologize even before the Commission asked for an apology. If you ask me, I think you could see where it's going. Take a listen.
You were not truthful when you said you received notice or you only saw the email communication 3 months ago. Am I correct? You were not truthful.
If I may, sorry. If I may, Chairperson?
Yes.
Chairperson, when I responded to this email, it was because when I looked at the Section 3, please bear with me, I saw 3 questions. I then responded to Mrs. Wilsnatch because I had been out of the province struggling with a laptop. I went to Parliament, they fixed it. I responded to her. I said to her, a lot of my testimony will have bearing regarding General Khumalo. If I may have permission to respond to him within 72 hours after, Chairperson. I then left it at that, even after General Khumalo had testified. However, I will admit, Chairperson, that all this confusion regarding the emails and my correspondence is entirely my fault. I could have done better, and I should have done better. My recollection of the email referring to the Section 3 is pertaining to the one that comes afterwards, and I did get my dates mixed, and for that I profusely apologize.
That premature apology, of course, wasn't enough because the back and forth continued for more than an hour. At some stage, Fadiel Adams also accused Parliament of lying. You might remember he had initially claimed that his laptop was faulty. Parliament was aware of this, and in fact, its IT department had been engaged with the issue. Parliament subsequently released a statement ultimately pushing back against that. Fadiel Adams now says that Parliament itself is misleading the public, and he's now served the institution with court papers, or in fact, his lawyers, I beg your pardon, have served the institution. Take a listen.
When you said that you had problems with your emails and as a result only became aware of the October 2025 communications only 3 months ago, were you suggesting, that is on the 11th of August this year, were you suggesting that all 3 devices were malfunctioning?
No, Chairperson, not at all.
What were you suggesting?
I can hand you my phone right now, Chairperson, my parliamentary phone. You will not find an email account or WhatsApp on here because I don't use it for that because these things get hacked. I've never used it. Furthermore, Chairperson, Parliament has just received a letter from my attorney demanding that they retract because Parliament told other lies. They said I've never emailed the Speaker regarding the PKTT, and there was another email they denied, and we produced both emails, Chairperson. So we are saying to Parliament that it is not my fault that your techies are not logging the work they do on my laptop. I've said it a little bit earlier, Chairperson and Commissioners, that you can summons, I won't even tell you which technician to summons, you can summons any one of them. They've all worked on my laptop.
All right, so that's how things unfolded. Let's bring in our senior reporter, Canny Maphanga, who's been watching these developments with us and joins us now from the Bridget Mabanda Justice College. Canny, we've heard a lot from Fadiel Adams and still have no idea what's in the statement.
bit of a hint that he's going to be dealing with certain issues, even extending beyond the IDAC investigation and going into his arrest by the PKTT that we saw play out recently. But in terms of what has been discussed so far, it's about holding a mirror up to Fadiel Adams with respect to some of the interviews that he had done, with the claim that he made that he had only learnt about the Rule 3 notice, I think it was 3 months prior, not in October last year.
Right.
I think that's the correct date.
Yes.
And if we look at the emails, 11 days after he received the notice, he was interacting in the email chain, which meant that he was fully aware of what he received at the time. So it would be untruthful to say that he only learned of it 3 or 4 months ago, when in fact he had responded to the initial email by the Commission's legal team, and there's only one Madlanga Commission, there isn't many. So at that point you should have known that 11 days into it you had said that you wanted to respond to the said Rule 3 notice after General Khumalo does his statement. It was such a specific request from Fadiel Adams that it becomes difficult to accept that he didn't know that that email chain existed. But he still holds on to his claim that he did not have access to his laptop, that his laptop was freezing, and he accuses Parliament, or at least the IT team of Parliament, of not being truthful when they state that they have no record of his complaints about his laptop, even citing one incident where he had to borrow, I think he's referring to an assistant's laptop to do those details.
Yeah.
But even in that instance, it's only one case where you had to use someone else's laptop, and I'm not sure how it proves that your laptop was freezing because you just borrowed a laptop for one instance to send out one particular email. So it was a bit of a long, lengthy exercise trying to get him to accept the proposition that he was untruthful on the 11th of August when he first appeared before the probe and gave the excuse that he gave, and also gave the timelines that he gave that actually don't match up with what the email correspondence shows in terms of when he received the Rule 3 notice and when he first started engaging with the Commission on these particular facts. And I think with this now out of the way, we can get to some of the real concerns that Fadiel Adams has to speak to now.
Yeah,
which,
and before we get into that, Canny, of course we will. It's also interesting to hear what sounded like an application for postponement, but of course it's not like any other that we've seen, given the fact that Fadiel Adams is not represented, or doesn't have representation.
Well, absolutely. And I don't think that he can ask for postponement on documents that were collated for him that he actually gave to the Commission itself. So those are all documents that he would have sent to the Commission, and they were just putting it in a file so that he can refer to it if he needs to do so. And he has the opportunity to look over it again overnight to deal with whatever issues he wants to deal with there. But in terms of the evidence of Fadiel Adams, I don't imagine it completing in one day, because there's a number of issues to answer to, particularly with the Section 27 referral and the subsequent second statement, let's put it that way, or second set of statements that Dylan Paramore said that he had conducted during that visit in Cape Town, that the investigators, Drew Ramsamy and Dylan Paramore, undertook in order to get the particular statement that they needed. I think it was the A1 statement at the time that they were drawing up. So outside of that, these are really his own documents that he appears to have sent to the Commission that they've now collated and put into a file, an exhibit file, so that he can refer to them easier. And I think there was a lengthy exercise even giving the details of each document and what it states. So it's all his documents, including anything that he'll speak to or claim that speaks directly to it. So if he makes a claim about Drew Ramsamy holding a different view about the merits of his quote-unquote scant statement, which would then lead IDAC into this overall investigation into crime intelligence, then they'll have to include Drew Ramsamy's sentiments as well in terms of what she had recorded about this particular event, to contrast that with what he is likely to claim in his statement. So hopefully all the administrative issues are now dealt with, and we can now get to the very statement of Fadiel Adams, because it's very important to understand whether or not he was allegedly a tool to target these high-ranking generals, or was this a legitimate complaint that he had made to IDAC? And what could have possibly gone wrong where you have two Section 27 referral statements, but only one is given to the Madlanga Commission, and the one is so difficult to marry to the authorization investigation that you end up discovering that, in fact, there is one that exists that speaks of the Political Killings Task Team, and it now makes sense how they got one statement and it led them into a completely different investigation. So hopefully we'll get those details after the tea adjournment, and we'll hear from Fadiel Adams whether or not this was allegedly an orchestrated, planned, systemic attack on these high-ranking generals, or was this a legitimate complaint that he turned to IDAC towards after he found no joy with the cases that he had opened across the country with respect to that?
Another question, undoubtedly, that I imagine would be posed to him is around his decision to now also lay charges against one of the IDAC investigators.
Yes, that is the now suspended chief IDAC investigator, Dylan Paramour, and it takes place around the time that there was a discovery of the initial, that's what we'll call it, before the probe, because both Mr. Rapesu and Dumisani confirmed that at all times they had never seen anything that had an absent element of the PKTT, meaning that the referral affidavit that they saw featured the Political Killings Task Team quite prominently. And anything outside of that isn't what they were working on when it was initially given to them by the former IDAC head advocate Andrea Johnson. And it raised questions as to whether or not the witnesses, or Johnson and Pariachi at the time, were allegedly trying to mislead the probe by giving them a document which seemingly played out in a way that it would be expected to play out, because it failed to marry with the authorization, which is why Brian Pariachi had such a tough time on the stand, because the scant statement that he had could not have reached the conclusions that he had reached in his particular investigation.
Right.
And that explains why Dumisani is insisting that the referral affidavit that was given to IDAC by Fadiel Adams had the PKTT featuring quite prominently. And we'll get those details as Fadiel Adams is expected to sit for more than one day, as Advocate Lee Seegers-Ngcubu has already intimated that it's not going to complete the task in one day, that he's likely going to have to return tomorrow to finish off that testimony.
Canny Maphanga, thanks as always. Canny Maphanga is our senior reporter, of course, here at the Bridget Mabandla Justice College. As you heard, the tea adjournment set to wrap up at 11:30, and I imagine that's when we'll finally get into the substance of Fadiel Adams' statement before the Madlanga inquiry.
All right, Ayanda, thank you very much for that. SABC News anchor Ayanda Nyathi there alongside senior reporter Canny Maphanga, both at the Bridget Mabandla Justice College.